I made this video to talk a little more about the kind of elements that we find all around us. So I made some chocolate chip cookies, and I got to thinking what kind of elements are in the ingredients that I'm using. But first, let's start with a brief discussion of what elements are. So you all know from the webinar today that everything is made up of atoms, and that each element is made up of one kind of atom. The atoms that make up each element are unique, so the atoms from one element are different from the atoms of all other elements. The elements are arranged in the periodic table according to their number of protons. So hydrogen, the first element, has 1 proton. Helium, the second one, has 2. Lithium, the third one, has 3, and so on. The periodic table gives you these two numbers that can be used to help you find out a little more about the atom. So it gives you the mass number, which is this bigger number on top, and this smaller number, which is called the atomic number, down below. The atomic number of an atom tells us the number of protons in its nucleus, and the atomic number of each element is unique, so the atomic number of an atom tells us which element it is. The mass number of an atom tells us the number of protons plus the number of neutrons in the nucleus of an atom. The atomic number of carbon is 6. This means that carbon atoms have 6 protons. The mass number of carbon is 12, which means that it has 6 protons and 6 neutrons. These diagrams show us the structure of two elements in the periodic table, carbon and hydrogen, and you can see that these elements are unique. Carbon has 6 protons, 6 neutrons, and 6 electrons. Hydrogen has just 1 proton and 1 electron. Everything around us is made up of a combination of these elements. Often, these elements are in molecules, which are made up of 2 or more atoms. The diagrams here show the structure of water, which is made up of 2 hydrogen atoms and an oxygen atom, and sodium chloride, or salt, which is made up of this 3-dimensional structure of sodium and chlorine atoms. So what kind of elements would we find in a chocolate chip cookie? Sugar is made up of this molecule called sucrose, which has just 3 elements, hydrogen, carbon, and oxygen. I also used some brown sugar, which contains a couple more elements like sodium, magnesium, phosphorus, sulfur, potassium, calcium, iron, copper, zinc, and selenium. I also used butter, which contains a lot of the same elements that were in the brown sugar. I used some vanilla extract, and the molecule that gives vanilla extract its vanilla flavor is made up of hydrogen, carbon, and oxygen. I also used eggs, which contain a lot of different elements. So they have hydrogen and carbon and oxygen, and they also have protein, which has nitrogen. In addition to these elements, eggs also contain magnesium, phosphorus, sulfur, potassium, calcium, manganese, iron, copper, zinc, selenium, and iodine, and also probably a few elements that I haven't included here. I added some salt, and as we were talking about earlier, salt consists of sodium and chlorine, and then the salt that I used also has this additional compound added, which has very small amounts of carbon, nitrogen, and iron. I also used bicarbonate of soda, or baking soda, which contains hydrogen, carbon, oxygen, and sodium in a molecule called sodium bicarbonate. I used some almond flour, which again has a lot of these same elements that were found in the other ingredients that we used, and some chocolate, which has a bunch of these similar elements as well. Now that we've looked at all the different elements found in the ingredients of my cookies, we can build a periodic table of chocolate chip cookies. Let's go in order of atomic number, so starting with hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, sodium, magnesium, phosphorus, sulfur, chlorine, potassium, calcium, manganese, iron, copper, zinc, selenium, and iodine. In this video, I just wanted to show you guys how the elements of the periodic table are all around us, even in the things that we eat. Thank you all for listening.